Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about this article that's making the rounds right now from Compact, The Lost Generation. And it's talking about how white men weren't hired for about 10 years at many jobs because they were chasing DEI. And now we have a whole lost generation of men that don't know what to do with themselves. Aren't in their careers where they should be. And I think this has actually led to a lot of the nihilism that we see with men of a certain age now, because they're like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point if I can't have a career, I can't have a family, I can't have a house? What is the point?
The worst thing you could be was white, straight, and male. We used to joke about this. And there was people in Hollywood that they, were they said white guys were being told that there wasn't work for them and everything else. We talked about it for the last several years. And so, I mean, it's understandable. I think some people take it way too far. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
But it's understandable if people are disenfranchised. And now, and just like DEI, I said all it was doing was causing more, bigotry, more people, hating each other than it ever was before DEI. It wasn't really helping, it was hurting. And this is a prime example of this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because what is happening, I think, in some cases, is that you got white guys who were displaced now blaming women and minorities and gay folks, whatever, more than they were before, because they're like, you took my job, man.
Ultimately, though, that's still, it sucks, but the whole blame game doesn't help anyone, but
No, but now we see behind the curtain why it was happening. This was absolutely engineered. It was engineered by, I believe, some of the financial institutions.
Well, there was rewards,
financial incentives
for doing it. Like they were literally, they had that Project Veritas, and the one person at Disney was like, "I'm probably never going to move up anymore because I'm a white guy."
Yeah,
and it's like he said they were hiring people that as long as they weren't white, and the people were getting financially incentivized. Companies were getting rewarded for getting put on a list for social responsibility and all this other crap, because they would hire people who may or may not be qualified. Not saying that you aren't qualified automatically if you're not white, straight, and male, because that's not true either. But they would hire people that oftentimes weren't qualified, and that made everybody who was qualified angry.
Yes, and then it also made people look bad if you just happen to hire people that were unqualified, that just happen to look like you or be the same gender or sexual orientation, whatever. Then companies would be less inclined to give people like you another chance, right? And that hurt everybody. So the whole idea was terrible. But now we have a
terrible idea.
But now we have a lot of collateral damage on so many levels. So let's take a look at this article and see what they have to say. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to more.clownfishtv.com. That's more.clownfishtv.com. So, a couple people sent me this. Thank you so much. But Matthew Schmidt says, beginning in 2014, Prestige Industries decided they urgently needed to diversify. They didn't purge established boomers. Instead, they did everything possible to avoid hiring more white millennial men. And,
Wait, boomers... Because we're hiring white millennial men, and they didn't want to displace boomers.
Yes. Well,
Gen X not mentioned again, but
Gen X is not mentioned again. We have another video just talking about Gen X lecturing everybody else. But this absolutely did happen, and it was about 2013, 2014. It was very noticeable. We were actually working in publishing and pitching shows, and we went from being... like, we had people that were not quite fighting over us, but they were very interested based on our numbers back then. And then everything cooled off. And I believe, but cannot prove, it cooled off because it wasn't cool to hire a middle-aged white couple in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, what's the point? So, this person's, the author is Jacob Savage, saying that he's scalped tickets to pay bills. He almost got a real career. He was trying to get his pilot picked up in Hollywood. And he said, this was it, the moment our careers were supposed to take off. We put in our time. I've been tutoring SATs and reselling tickets to make ends meet while I wrote. And 5 years seemed par for the course. That's usually what it used to be. It used to be about, you pay your dues for about 5 years to break into any kind of creative industry, right? 5 years. Based on these slightly older guys we knew who'd made it. But of course, by 2016, we were already late. The showrunner emailed us back apologetically. I had initially thought I might be able to bring you guys on, but in the end, it wasn't possible. We met with the executive anyway, a Gen X white guy, who told us how much he loved our pilot, but the writer's room was small, he explained, and the higher level writers were all white men. They couldn't have an all-white male room. Maybe if the show got another season, they'd be able to bring us on. They never did. The doors seemed to close everywhere and all at once. In 2011, the year I moved to Los Angeles, white men were 48% of lower-level TV writers. By 2024, they account for just 11%.
Yeah, they're overcorrection. And the problem is, like, if you got rid of people who just, weren't qualified and replacing people that were, that might be diverse, that's one thing. But they weren't. It was basically like, everybody who looks like this automatically is disqualified, even if they're more qualified because they don't look like X, Y, and Z thing. And then it was a competition about how many check boxes you had, and whoever had the most check boxes got the jobs. It was like the Sunshine parody, if you haven't seen that one before.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Australian. It was Sunshine who had like a cajillion check boxes. It was supposed to be a parody.
And he won the math contest, even though he couldn't do math.
He couldn't do math. But he had the right check boxes. Yeah, that's what it was. So he's saying 2014 was the hinge year, the year DEI became institutionalized across American life. I believe that 100% because, again, we saw the change happen, and we've talked about it in other videos that we were very much able to pick up agents, very much able to pitch our stuff. Very much like him, we were kind of around the periphery. We were doing comics. We got an agent. We were going to pitch shows. The whole thing, yada yada yada. And then it was about 2014 where somebody just pushed a button and said, "You know what? You guys aren't cool anymore. We can't." In fact, our agent, who himself was a white male, the one agent we had then, we've had a couple since him, but the one that we had back then, I remember when the cool off started, and it was when he asked for headshots, and he was kind of like, "Hey, I think he thought we, or at least I was black. I'm not even,
and I was a woman, so
and that's
we got one of them right.
We got one of them right, but then you were pushing back too because he wanted you to be more feminine."
And I was, I'm feminist. I'm just not like ridiculous intersectionally feminist.
Yeah, so it was very weird. Like there were places we were publishing or pitching to, rather, that were publishing like romantic stories or whatever previously, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, well, we can't have any romance." But then you find out that it's like, no, it's not they can't have any romance. It just couldn't be straight romance. It had to be LGBTQ romance. And just things got very, very weird. It became very noticeable. And I think that the first domino was probably knocked over before then. But when it really hit the entertainment industry, the publishing industry, was about 2014. And so it said in industry after industry, gatekeepers promised extra consideration to anyone who wasn't a white man.
That's true.
And then provide just that. We were pitching something similar to somebody else, but we had a bigger audience, and that other person got theirs picked up. And, I hate to be that guy, but I think I know the reason.
Yeah.
Because that person wasn't a white man. Just saying. With every announcement of promotions, there was a desire to put extra emphasis on gender or race, which is very, very weird. This is a former management consultant.
Especially when it comes to creative things, like you're writing a show. You're not going to be the face of the show. You're writing a show. You're writing a comic book. You're doing these things, and you're not really your face isn't really associated with it, just your name. Yeah. And then and even like voice acting, and they're trying so hard to be like you have to look a certain way, and it's like, but why does that matter? It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like it's not like I'm like in front of the camera here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It shouldn't matter, but they make it matter.
So this is a consultant, right, for Compact, said, and when you don't fall into those groups, the message gets louder and louder and gains more and more emphasis. On the one hand, you want to celebrate people who have been at a disadvantage.
Right.
On the other hand, you look and you say, wow, the world is not rooting for you. In fact, it's deliberately rooting against you. It wasn't just about equalizing or leveling the playing field. It was about putting other people at a disadvantage to raise other people up, which is the difference between equality and equity.
It was affirmative action.
It was affirmative action, yes. And it was done on a wide scale because these banks, these lenders would not give you money unless you did this. And then what happened was they hired a bunch of people based solely on check boxes and not on skill. And I'm not saying the white people they would have hired would have had any more skills. I'm just saying a lot of these companies jumped at like, oh, hey, we've got, this person's got these check boxes and we need one of those. So the first one that walks in the door, we're going to hire.
Well, there was a reason I kept joking for years. Hollywood, according to Hollywood diversity, was black lesbians. That's why, or black or lesbian. That's why I was joking, because I wasn't really joking, because it was.
Yep. And I think they're starting to realize, like, oh yeah, we really messed up. But then the bottom fell out. I mean, so many things happened. Like, we had a bunch of people working in tech that frankly weren't qualified to work in tech, and then the bottom fell out of tech. And they claim the bottom fell out of tech, but I think companies like Facebook, Meta, were just trying to purge themselves of a bunch of these diversity hires, because they're like, they bring no.
I wouldn't even say it's everybody. It's just the ones that were like the
ones that weren't performing,
far left activist types. Because unfortunately, what they did was the ones who screamed the loudest were the ones that got hired, and the ones that screamed the loudest were the activisty types. And unfortunately, what that meant was there could be people that were, the same identity as some of these people that were far more qualified, but they never got that far because they were out there screaming all the time.
So this is really interesting, because this is coming from an HR person. Is it Kian Yamada Taylor in the New Yorker? So it's coming from the New Yorker. Undoubtedly, there's been ham-fisted DEI programming that is intrusive or alienating. For the most part, it was relatively benign practice meant to increase diversity while also sending a message that workplaces should be fair and open to everyone. That's the ideal.
Unless you're white, straight, and male.
Well, that was the ideal. I mean, again, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. I think you can, this is just me being me, but I think you can probably draw a correlation between the rollout of the DEI initiatives being taken to the nth extreme and the uptick in a lot of younger guys, following like Andrew Tate and people like that, because they feel very disenfranchised.
Well, even before all this started, I remember our son was in school and he was upset because he said a lot of times that the teachers would, and especially female teachers, would only call on the girls and they wouldn't give the boys a chance, and this was years ago, before it started. And he was upset about it because he said, they never let the boys have a chance. Yeah. And he was really upset about it because he's like, he noticed that they keep only pushing for the girls. And I get, letting everybody have a turn, but when you're exclusionary, it's a problem.
Oh my gosh, are they drawing the same conclusion here? They're talking about Andrew Tate, I think. But no, they're talking about different media outlets and stuff. Yeah, it is a problem. It's got a point now. They're saying, well, millennials are most affected. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of you millennials were the ones who are pushing for this.
How are they most affected? I don't buy that.
Because they're saying, oh, the boomers and the Gen Xers. I'm like, no. We're between Gen X and millennial, but no, guys like me got displaced 100%. It wasn't just because of DEI. It was also ageism, because I remember working in tech. When you hit 35, you were over the hill. You were ancient. You need to get your ass out of tech.
Ironically, I just saw things saying that, it's the Gen Z people and the Gen Xers and even the boomers that are still working that are facing a lot of the problems that millennials, the ones in their 30s, are seeming like the ones that are getting most of the jobs. But, I don't believe this is millennials most affected. I would say that, maybe the late millennials, early Gen Zs are the ones who are seeming to be turning against this crap, because you were told for years that you were white, straight, and male, so you're the problem. You're going to get pissed. I didn't do anything to you. I did nothing wrong. I haven't treated you differently, but yet I'm still, it's okay to hate me even though I didn't do anything to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it was insane. Well, they talk about BLM and all that, but here we have people that you would think would be cheering it on, and it affected them. He says, Ethan, a liberal academic, was passed over for jobs because he was white and male. The experience changed his self-understanding. Other identifiers have receded, he explained. Being a white man, meanwhile, moved into the foreground in a way I didn't expect. Basically, you were the villain. It didn't matter.
Yes, it doesn't matter how much you sit there and they'll eat you last. You can kiss their ass and go along. Yes, you're right. Yeah, eat them. And then they're going to come for you. We told people this many, many times, and that's exactly what happened.
Andrea Lucas, chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, weighs in. The story is chock full of unlawful discrimination. Here's the thing. A lot of times they wouldn't do it overtly. They wouldn't say, hey, sorry, we're not going to hire you because you're a white man.
They're not going to say
They're not going to tell you that to your face.
It's going to be hard to prove anyway, unless there's documentation that there was some kind of correspondence with somebody that's why, or they had enough people witnesses. But even then, that's going to be considered hearsay, unless there's solid evidence. They're not going to say that's why.
Wow, this is okay. So Shoe on Head has this here. Hold on, this is a piece of it. Suddenly, in the newsroom, everything was driven by identity. There were endless diversity trainings, a racial climate assessment. At one point, reporters were told they had to catalog in minute detail the identity characteristics of all their sources.
Why does that matter?
Why does that matter? Andrew had been instrumental in forming the union and his company and objected when negotiations shifted from severance pay and parental leave to demands for racial quotas. They wanted to do like emergency hires of black people. This is how you get unqualified people. If you're like, I have to fill a quota, and the first person who walks in the door that happens to look a certain way or happens to sleep with certain people or whatever, that's who I'm going to hire.
Well, it was
I'm
funny.
like, that's not good.
I just saw a skit, and I forget what the skit was from. Some of you guys might know if in the comments. I don't remember what it was from, but basically it was a guy he's hiring, and he hires this one guy for the job, and the guy's like a white guy, and then he's like, oh, I got the job, and then in walks a woman, and he's like, wait, oh, we got a woman? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to give it to her. And each time someone walked in the door, it was somebody with more check boxes, you know, and it was like, and each one supposed to have weighed more, and it's like, well, I'm going to hire them. No, I'm going to hire them, you know, and it was basically like whoever had the most check boxes was the one they'd hire, and it turned out they didn't have like any of the skills they needed, but they got hired because they were the right check boxes, and that's what this was about. And unfortunately, the unintended side effect is that people would automatically assume if you weren't white, straight, and male, you were hired because of diversity training and diversity and DEI shit, which isn't true either. I mean, a lot of people were hired because they were qualified, but this now makes it look like to everybody that you were only hired because of DEI, and it's bullshit.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just to be clear, this isn't Andrew.
No,
Tate.
this is Andrew from the newspaper.
Andrew from the newspaper. Andy from the newspaper. But yeah, he said he couldn't advance anywhere. He said anytime he would say something that was unapproved on a Zoom call, all the women, he could hear the fingers clacking because they were, you know, gossiping about him or whatever. And then what happens is once these people come in, they will hire, a lot of times they go right for the HR department. And it's like the Borg in First Contact when they take over the Enterprise, they go in and immediately just get to work at like assimilating everyone. That's kind of what happens. Like they'll come in and then they'll make sure they get their people in the HR department, and then they will hire more people like themselves. And then eventually they will just, if they don't push you out the door outright, they will make it so uncomfortable that you just leave on your own. And that's what happened. And then, you know, you'd leave on your own, and then you'd be a malcontent, a bigot, a Nazi, a homophobe, or whatever. And you wouldn't be able to find a job, especially in media. You wouldn't be able to find a job anywhere else. So you have to go start a podcast. And then all of a sudden you were known as a right-wing podcaster, even though you were Democrat for most of your life.
Yeah, right.
Jeez, I wouldn't know how the fuck that happens. You know,
well, it's because you're literally Satan because you're a white straight man.
Yeah, that's what. But now it's ending. So now what's going on is all this shit's collapsing. All the media's collapsing. And these people are panicking because a lot of them, frankly, were not qualified to begin with. They only got their jobs because they just happen to have the right skin tone or gender or whatever.
Well,
whatever it was.
People wouldn't think that either. I mean, they could like these. Go back up for a second. There was an Atlantic. Like, stop right there. People wouldn't think that, except these places themselves are the ones making it about identity, not about hiring based on skill. The Atlantic succeeded in hiring fewer white males since 2020. Nearly 2/3 of the Atlantic's hires have been women, along with 50% of people of color. By 2024, they announced that 3/4 of their editorial hires the past year have been women and 69% of people of color. Again, you're leading with identifiers, not by. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what they have between their legs. What I want to know is, what qualifications did they have? What experience did they have? That kind of stuff. Like they used to lead with, we got so and so in, and so used to lead this and this and this, and it was really important. Now it's, we got so in, and good news, they're a black lesbian in a wheelchair. No offense to black lesbians in a wheelchair. I just, Kneon always says that. But you know what I'm saying?
I joke about that because that was like the most overrepresented. Like it wasn't enough to just be one thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to be all the things. You couldn't just be, I just happen to be black. I just happen to be gay. I just happen to be, in a wheelchair. No, you couldn't just be one of those things. You had to be all of them and also have vitiligo and also probably have
alopecia,
autism and also
else,
have all this other,
I'm just saying that's what they used to lead with. We have this person. Here's their pedigree. They come from a lot of different places. That's really good. This is a great hire for us.
Yes.
Hey, look, we got this great person, and that's what they used to do. But now they're not saying we hire all these people based on color and gender, but they aren't saying what their qualifications are, and they might be qualified, but you don't know that because they aren't telling you that. All you're telling people is, hey, it's not white straight men. And so then, of course, people that are white, straight, and male are going to get more and more upset because they're being pushed out. And they're not even being pushed out with provable reasons. Like, oh, they are more qualified than you. Well, you don't even know what their qualifications are other than, having a vagina and, different colored skin or, liking vaginas when you have a vagina, that kind of stuff.
What's your qualification? Where'd you go to school? What's your work history? I like vaginas and I have a vagina. You're hired. That's great. We need more people that have vaginas and like vaginas. There we go. Persons with vaginas. Anyway, but no, then it becomes kind of an ageism thing because now he's like going after, well, the Gen X white men got to keep their jobs. I'm like, yeah, it's probably true, but he said that they were kind of grandfathered in. So the grousing.
That's probably true because they're the ones hiring.
Yes. And well, I mean, look at Disney. Look how diverse and inclusive we are, but we make sure all the people at the top are white dudes.
I know, right?
And it's, in some cases, I think it's deflection. Honest to God, especially in the entertainment industry, I think a lot of white men, especially straight white men, to protect themselves, surrounded themselves with DEI hires as almost like a shield. Right? I mean, it's horrible to think that, but I've seen it. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna make sure we hire all these diverse people. So look at my team. Look how diverse my team is. Now, don't look at me, but look at all the other people I hired that I brought in. So I'm safe, right?
See, I don't care who pretty much. I don't care who they hire for a job. I don't care what color they are or what gender they are. I just want to know if they're qualified. And the thing is, you're not even hearing about qualifications. All you're hearing about is, identifiers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's understandable why so many men are getting disenfranchised and they're getting upset. And then you're seeing bigotry, not just in men, just across the board. Bigotry increasing, division increasing, because, it's not even about qualifications. Even the ones that get hired that might be highly qualified, you're not hearing about their qualifications. You're just hearing about their identifiers.
Wow.
So you're boiled down to reproductive organs and skin color.
So here, look at this. Okay, so Andrew, for his part, was unable to adopt the performative allyship that had become expected. Yeah, and again, especially like in comics and animation, you see these straight white men that were all like, boy, oh boy, I sure do like lesbians, but not like that because I'm a good guy. But boy, oh boy, I wish we could just have more, whatever, and it was like over the top ridiculous. It was because it was like they're putting on a show because it was performative. Like, I'm an ally, everybody. And here I am. I'm going to take in comics. It was like, I'm going to take the anti-rape pledge.
Yeah, but that's what they were doing that because they wrongfully thought if they went and did that they'd be one of them and it would save them. But it still came for them anyway, just last.
It'll come for you last. Yep. I always thought I was an effeminate nerd growing up, but my way of expressing myself now puts me in the most masculine end of men in media. Okay, so Andrew was kind of femme, and he's like, oh my God, now I'm a toxic male. I started to pick up on the fact there wasn't much room for people who even speak in my timber. He said he was recruited for a senior reporter position at a more prestigious outlet, jumping through hoops every step of the way. By the end, it felt like a cruel joke. Extensive interviews, writing tests, endless meetings with various editors, only to find out months later the job had gone to someone a decade younger than him, a gay man of color who'd managed to go from intern to assistant editor to senior reporter in less than 2 years.
I'm sorry, that's shit.
Like the Tumblr cartoonists who have no professional experience that get handed the keys to one of the most popular 80s IP of all time and given millions of dollars. So here you go, because you're the right person, right place, right time.
Yeah, no, see, I'm sorry that I don't blame him. I'd be mad too. He did all that work, spent years, had all the experience, and this one person had no experience, basically had no experience. And then they were given a senior position in less than 2 years just because they were, right color and like to, sleep with the right person.
So this person, Andrew, he finally made senior reporter in 2023 because, again, the pendulum shift, but it took him 10 damn years. And that felt less like recognition than a consolation prize. He was coming up on 40, unmarried, with little room for forward or lateral movement. When the next round of buyouts hit, he decided it was time to leave. So he finally gets it, and then he just leaves because it's so damn hard. This is ridiculous. So I'm glad that more people are talking about this. You know, it needs to be discussed. I think we need to look at this, you know, historically and be like, look, there's, yeah, this attempt at quote unquote overcorrection was not. It was actually causing more division, causing more racism, causing more homophobia.
Can't we just admit, like, I'm sorry, that one story, that guy had like no experience. He was an intern and he gets to be a senior editor.
Yeah.
Can we just admit that you should just hire based on who's the best suited for the job? If you have the qualifications to get the job, that should be who gets hired. It shouldn't be based on, you know, any other identifiers other than can you do the job? You know, I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what sexual orientation you are. I don't care what religion you are, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have the qualifiers that make you the best person for this position? If the answer is yes, then that's the person that gets hired.
Yeah.
Meritocracy.
Oh my God, guys, imagine that. All right, we got to wrap this one up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.